Hi, this is Jeremy Kellett, Director of Recruiting here at Oakley Trucking, and I'm your host for this podcast. This is the Oakley Podcast, Trucking, Business, and Family. And this podcast is for our owner-operators and their families here at Oakley Trucking. And we try to give you good information every week, to help you be successful and learn more about this company. And on today's episode, we actually have one of our owner-operators. His name's Olof McTaggart, and he has such a great story that it's not just a success story, but it's more of a life story of him being in the transportation industry for 50 years. Great story. I hope you tune in and listen to it. It's really heartfelt and honest, and I think you'll enjoy it. But first, before we get to him, let's do a Oakley update sponsored by Arrow Truck Sales. Arrow Truck Sales has been in business for over 60 years and a longtime partner of Oakley Trucking and the Oakley Podcast. Trey Visor and Keith Wilson do a great job at putting you in the right truck to fit your needs and our needs here at Oakley. They carry all makes and models to choose from with on-site financing through transport funding. So whether you are a seasoned owner-operator or a first-time buyer, be sure to contact Keith Wilson at Arrow Truck Sales at 573-216-6047 and tell him you heard it on the Oakley Podcast. So on today's update, it is all about customer service. And I want to give you, first let's start out with an email that a company sent one of the operation guys, and it's from a company called Theo Kaolin Company out of Rennes, Georgia. And I'll just read this email that was sent to Bradley in our pneumatic division. But it says, the collective review of all of your drivers from those they interacted with at Theo last week was outstanding! ! Great communication, timeliness, and all-around pleasure to work with. One quote from the foreman over the process was, "Oakley is the Chick-fil-A of truck lines and always has been." I hope you take that compliment with the high praise intended. The customer service and product you supply are second to none. I just want to say thank you for your availability to help our customer out in a pinch and ensure their satisfaction. You help make an oftentimes stressful situation go seamlessly. Tom Bennett, Operations Manager at Theo Kaolin Company, Rennes, Georgia. Now, how's that for a pat on the back to our owner-operators that take care of that customer? I can't say enough about that. Customer service is huge at this company. If you don't believe it, just stick around for about an hour and you'll know it is, because that's what we preach here. And it's so important to take care of our customers because they're your customers too. That's how we get paid. That's how the owner-operators get paid. So can't stress enough about customer service. Be presentable where you go into these places. Take care of your equipment. Look and play the part, and it goes a long way. So we appreciate all you do out there when it comes to customer service. Okay, let's get started with the story of Olof McTaggart and his 50-year career in trucking. First of all, introduce yourself, who you are, where you're from, and then I'll start drilling you with some questions.
Okay. I'm Olof McTaggart. I currently live in Birch Tree, Missouri. Born and raised on a dairy farm in Kansas. And, as far as hobbies, I guess trucking's about it. I used to ride my motorcycle, but I don't even get time to fix it where I can ride it anymore.
You still got one, huh?
Yeah, I've got an 83 Goldwing sitting in the garage at home. That
Family?
Between my wife and I, we've got 6 children, and I'd have to take my shoes off here. Last count is 16 grandchildren, but
wow.
But 6 of those kids were children from another family that 2 of my sons had married the ladies that had these children already. So And we've got 4 great-granddaughters.
Nice.
And another one on the way. I don't know whether she's going to be a granddaughter or a grandson, but anyway.
Big family.
Yeah. It's quite an event when we get together.
How long you and your wife been married?
See, now it'll be 27 years in May 11th.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
So we're like a lot of folks, we tried and failed a couple of times before we got together, but this one's worked.
This one's stuck together on this one.
Yeah.
And how old are you?
I was 69 on February 4th this year.
Well, congratulations. Happy birthday. 69. You don't look 69, if it's any consolation. Look pretty good shape to be 69.
Well, if my old back will hold out, I'll be all right.
So tell our listeners how you got into the trucking business. How long you been in the trucking business?
Altogether, since February of 1972 was the first time I got in a tractor trailer of any kind.
Wow.
I got out of high school and kind of bummed around for a year or so and got married less than a year after I graduated. Had to get a real job, so I went to work for a modular housing company. And the guy that run the setup and delivery crew, he was character, to say the least. He grabbed me up before I even finished filling out the application. I thought I was going to go to work in the plant building houses, and he grabbed me up and put me on his crew. And a few months after got started there, he said, "Go get your chauffeur's license." I was just barely past my 18th birthday when I went to work for the people. But being a private carrier and everything, we get away with hauling those modular houses around. So my first experience with a tractor trailer was pulling a 12-foot wide half of a house down the highway.
Taking up the whole highway.
Yeah. Of course, we had escort vehicles and everything. But, I just knocked around. I worked for a couple outfits running dump trucks and stuff and, things like that. And
Well, had any of your family been in trucking before
No.
that?
none.
So it was new
None.
to the whole family.
Yeah. We were all farmers. My dad, that's all he'd ever done was farm. One of my brothers had gone off after he got out of high school and joined the Army, and then come back and went into forestry. But, yeah, none of our family had ever. Closest thing I got to that, I've got a cousin in Kansas City, Kansas, that has been a sign painter for years, and he got into lettering trucks. And he's got a couple of pretty good-sized customers up there in Kansas City area. He's 80 years old, and he's still putting decals on trucks.
No kidding.
Yeah. But, it was no truck experience at all.
So you initiated the family into the trucking business, and you took off from there.
Yeah, for better or worse,
You were telling me downstairs earlier that you'd gotten into the office work a little bit. So you got a little bit of office environment or dispatch environment before you became, I guess, an owner-operator, of course.
Well, no, it was after. I had
Afterwards?
actually had 3 trucks leased to the company that I went in and
Oh, okay.
worked running
Okay,
the shop
that's
and
right.
stuff.
That's right. You were telling me you had the bright idea you wanted to be a fleet owner.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And the gentleman that helped me become a fleet operator, he also gave me the job in the shop office, and I stayed there for 15 years.
Oh, did you?
In one capacity or another. Yeah, I started there in 1976, and I didn't leave until 91. So, yeah, that was one of those adventures that
15 years. It worked for a while. It sounds like.
Well, I was on the road for first 10 of that. I moved up from an old cab over Kenworth that I bought from the company there, and had 3 new trucks, 2 of them that I bought for myself to drive, and then the last new truck that I had before I got off the road was I bought it to put a driver in, and that was one of those crazy deals. But I just I had an old Peterbilt with a V8 cat in it. That was my baby. I kept driving it. My second wife, I taught her how to drive on that truck.
No, really?
Yeah. But anyway, the company that I was with at that time, they got into financial difficulties, and just a few months after I parted company with them, they were no longer in business.
Right. So what'd you go do?
A bunch of the people that I'd gotten to be really close to, and one of them was a former Missouri Highway patrolman that was our safety man for quite a while at that company, had gone to work for Trans Am out of Kansas City. And, the day I left that company, I went home and called this highway patrolman, and I said, "Hey, man, I need a job."
Like quick.
Yeah. And the following Monday, I was in there for orientation. I went to hauling meat for Trans Am.
Well, what'd you do with your 3 trucks?
Those 3 trucks had gone to 5 trucks, and then I was back to 4 after my old baby got wrecked, and sold it. And those 4 trucks were on an investor deal with the company that I was working for, and when they got in financial issues, they went bye-bye before I left the company.
Okay.
So when I left there, I was basically back where I started. No truck, and
So you did need a job.
yeah. But anyway, I worked for Trans Am for 4 years, 4.5 years. Let's see, 91 to 90. Yeah.
As company driver?
Yeah. And I met my current wife while I was working for Trans Am, and took her out of the nursing field and made a truck driver out of her.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. Yeah, she drove with me for 12 years.
Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And she was still on the truck when I started talking to Oakley about coming down here. And one thing led, one thing and another, and she retired before I made the switch. But yeah.
And that was 13 years ago.
Yeah, 13 years ago I came over here. Basically, all I'd ever done was, after I messed those houses and drove dump truck off and on there for a little while, right after my 21st birthday, I went to work for a gentleman that had 3 trucks hauling farm machinery. And I'd known this guy all my life. I mean, we used to fill silo for his dad. He was like a neighbor. But anyway, I worked for him for most of a year, and we parted company, and I went to work for insulation plant up there at home, hauling insulation out. And then this guy from back in 72, when I had to have got involved with trucks in the first place, he was kind of in the circle, and he had 2 trucks at the time. Called me up there one evening, spring of 1976, and he says, "Hey," he said, "my brother quit driving for me. My truck's sitting in old Olathe, Kansas, with a load going to California." He said, "I need you to go to Fulton, Missouri, if you can, and get qualified and everything, and take that load to California." And so I talked to the folks there at the insulation plant, and they said, "Well, springtime, things are slowing down, If you want to go do that for a while, we'll leave the door open. You can come back. I never went back.
Got in that truck, and now the rest is
yeah,
is trucking every day.
And that was with the company
that you were with for 15 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then after that, you went to Trans Am. You were there
4.5, 91 to 95, so just a little over 4 years. And from there, I went to All Freight Systems in Kansas City. And
is that where your wife drove with you too?
Yeah, she went with me. She didn't have enough experience yet to go on her own and so forth. And
right.
So anyway, we drove team for All Freight for 2.5 years, and that's when we got back into owner-operator in January '98.
So you were an owner-operator at All Freight?
Yeah. Part of the time I was an owner-operator. Part of the time I drove a company truck. Okay. I started on a company truck, and then we bought our first truck together in '98.
What was that truck?
97 Western Star.
Nice.
It had belonged to a good friend of mine that passed away, and his widow, although she could have taken the truck and done anything she needed to do, she didn't want to do it on her own. She didn't want to fight with drivers, and so I stepped in there and took that truck over, and that's how we got started.
97 Western Star. How long did you have it?
We got it in January '98, swapped it off on a new Western Star in April of 2000.
So about that time, I guess, no. When did you start looking at Oakley?
2006.
Okay.
I was wanting to get out of the reefer business, and there was a small dry box company in St. Joe, Missouri, that was hiring, and some friends of mine had gone over there and seemed to be doing pretty good. So my wife and I tried that out for a while and figured out that after that little company got swallowed up by Cornhusker out of Omaha, Nebraska, that we kind of went from bad to worse there. And I went back and bought a trailer of my own and went back in the reefer business at that point. That was 2002. And I stayed at Seaboard Transport. They're part of Seaboard Foods, if anybody, pork processors. And we stayed there until I came here in 2010. But I just got to the point with the whole racket of hauling meat and produce and dealing with grocery warehouses and meat packing plants. And then they got in trouble up there because they put PeopleNet systems in the trucks, but we weren't using them for logs. And I told them, I said, you got this thing, DOT comes in here, you better be able to match it to the, we don't keep those records. I said, somebody does. And so after they paid a pretty good sized fine for log falsification, they decided we were going to go on electronic logs in 2000. That would have been December 2009. And I'd been talking to y'all for a little bit in there, off and on, and just had never made the jump. And
did Mark Steck introduce you to Oakley, or was that?
Yeah, he did. I'd been hearing your advertisements on XM, Sirius, and got me interested in it, and I'd talked to some of your drivers and so forth, and I can't remember any of them's name, with the exception of Warren Calder.
Yeah.
I got talking to Warren because I heard him on the radio one night with Steve Summers.
Yeah. Oakley Trucking is a 100% owner-operator company. We specialize in hopper bottom, end dump, and pneumatic trailers. We provide the trailer free of charge, and you provide the truck. We have a large customer base that reaches the whole United States as well as parts of Canada. Our owner-operators live anywhere from Texas to North Carolina to Pennsylvania to Wisconsin and everywhere in between, and we get them home weekends. We take it seriously when you join Oakley Trucking because we need you to be successful. Oakley offers great benefits and competitive mileage pay, so you know that when your wheels are turning, you're generating money no matter if you're loaded or empty. We understand that you want to make a good living and that you make our living. We only take on independent contractors, and to be honest with you, we are very particular on who we lease on. You must have a good driving record, good work history, and clean, dependable truck. So if you're interested in Oakley Trucking or just want some more information, you can go to oakleytrucking.com, listen to our weekly podcast, The Oakley Podcast, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
But anyway, finally made the move in 2010, got over here. But I just saw the handwriting on the wall. I wasn't going to be able to do what I needed to do on electronic logs, pulling that refrigerated trailer. I didn't even want to try, you know.
Then you got over here, and later we introduced him.
Yeah.
At some point.
I told Roger Frazier in there the day they were putting the Qualcomm in my old truck. I said, I quit the last job because they was going to put us on electronic logs. And I quit another job basically because they were going to put a Qualcomm in the truck and charge me for the use of it. And Roger says, "What are you going to do now?" I said, I haven't got any place to run now.
Backed in a corner. Finally got you.
Yeah, finally got me.
Well, I think it's a great success story that you've been in trucking for so long, and one that you've been pulling an end dump for Oakley for 13 years. That in itself is pretty awesome that you've been able to do that 13 years. Because it's not always great days. At any place you have ups and downs for sure.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
Talk a little bit about pulling an end dump, because I'm assuming you had a little dump truck experience way back, but a lot of people come here and have never pulled an end dump, and it's different. As a recruiter, I know what I tell them, that it's different. Be prepared. It's going to be work, this kind of stuff. But what would somebody been doing it 13 years? What do you need? Tell somebody what they need to expect.
Well, first off, if you're faint of heart, have a problem with heights, with standing a 40-foot trailer up to dump it, this ain't the place to be. It's just heights have never bothered me, and I never thought about it until here, been a year or so ago. One of my friends over here said that he helped to get a new operator started here, and the guy was afraid of heights.
Afraid of heights is in watching the trailer go up there, climbing on the trailer.
Climbing on the trailer.
Gotcha.
And doing what we have to do with some of the scrap loads and foundry coke and so forth, putting the bows back in and getting that leveled off where you can get the tarp over it without tearing the tarp. But the guy was just scared him to death to get his feet that high off the ground. And so he didn't work out. But I'll never forget that first load. I was telling Miles a little while ago. First load out, you guys weren't sending us out with somebody to help us get started at that point.
There was no training back then. It was self-trained.
The only experience I had putting that trailer in the air was out here on the yard with Mr. Randolph showing us how to do it. And I got up in the Pittsburgh area with a load of scrap stainless steel. First off, we punched a hole in the floor of the trailer. First load, when a piece of heavy piece of stainless fell from where they had it loaded in the trailer, hit the floor and punched a hole in it. And then that load was so squirrely that the guy up there in Pittsburgh didn't want to let me string it out, which is what I would have had to done with it. So while I got it standing up in the air, he's back there with a grapple, dragging it out of the trailer, piling it up. And we run a piece of stainless steel tubing through inside drive tire.
This was your first week.
First load.
First load.
First load. So anyway, it kind of got off to a rocky start, and but no, the only thing I would tell somebody, if you're afraid of getting dirty, this isn't the place to be.
Well, how do you maintain cleanliness? Every time I see you, every time you come into the office, you're.
Well, I make it a point when I come around here to be cleaned.
You always looking sharp.
And I don't do. I've given up trying to keep the truck as neat as I used to when I was pulling a reefer and running long miles and get the layover in California where the weather was nice and polished and clean and all that kind of stuff. But no, it's just something you got to do. I mean,
what's some of the craziest loads you've hauled or been to? Some of the places you've been to.
Well, I'd say the craziest one was Nick Crisco was my dispatcher, and it was coming up close to Christmas. It was December, and he said, "Got a kind of an off-the-wall deal here." He said, "We got a load down here at Weber's Falls, Oklahoma, going to Afton, Wyoming." Oh, okay. I said, "Yeah, Wyoming's always nice in the wintertime." So he gives me his phone number. He said, "I don't know what the deal is." He said, "It's one of these off-the-wall loads we booked." So, and he told me it was antimony. And I'm like, antimony? What? What's antimony? I looked it up, and it's a mineral that's used in the processing of gold. Antimony, come out. So my instructions were to call this guy from the Loves there at Weber's Falls, and they'd come get me. Well, the guy comes and gets me and takes me about 6 miles out in the country and around, and he said, "Right there's where we're going to load," but he said, "I need you to come up and around and come in from the top side." And it's just a pit. He's got an excavator sitting up there. He takes me up through his farm and around and down off the hill so that I was coming in there the right way to get loaded and be headed out back onto the road. Boy, this is weird. And I asked him when he was taking me back over to the truck there, I said, what are you shipping out of here? And he said, "What did Oakley tell you?" And I said, "Antimony." And he started laughing. He said, "It's gold." And I'm like,
Gold?
Gold. I said, "Gold in Oklahoma?" "Yep." He said, "We got doing some digging around out here, and we've got gold in here." When he got me loaded now, and he got me loaded, he swore up and down that there was $5 million worth of gold ore in that trailer. And I said, "Did you tell them that was?" "No." I said, "I'm not sure we got insurance to cover $5 million. What if I scatter this thing all over Wyoming?" He just laughed. He said, "I'll go pick it up." So, and this was the other end that made this thing so screwy. And I asked Nick about it after we got loaded and I got back out where my phone were. I said, "Do you know what?" And we talked it over, and he said, "Haul it." He said, "Be sure you collect a check. It was COD delivery." This load went to a dairy farm that was no longer milking cows in the country up there outside Afton, Wyoming. And I quit. But I had a phone number. I called the people. Yep. Okay, this is how you get out here. It snowed that night. Well, now, when I loaded that stuff in Oklahoma, it was mud and rocks. It's down in the single digits up there in Afton, Wyoming when I get there, and about 6 inches of fresh snow on the ground. So I'm kind of wondering, because one of my experiences has been with a load of frozen coal, if this is even going to come out of the trailer.
Right.
And while we were beating and shoveling and getting the last of it out of the trailer, it came out pretty good. But I said, what is going on here? And he says, well, what did the guy in Oklahoma say it was? I said, he told me he had $5 million worth of gold ore in that trailer. And one guy looked at the other one and he says, well, he said, the only thing I would argue the point is that how much it's worth. And he took me in what had been the dairy barn, and they had a smelter set up in there. He showed me some of the gold that they were getting out of it. And I said, okay, well, why are we doing this up here in the middle of nowhere, Wyoming? He said, well, we're trying to figure it out. He said, we got stuff coming in from several different places. We're trying to figure out what's going to be worth going after and what's not. And he said, nobody thinks anything about a big truck coming into the farm. And he said, so we're up here doing our thing. And
that is a crazy load.
But, I mean, other than that, every load's different,
Yeah.
But,
not that extreme, though. I don't
yeah,
know.
that was, I told one guy that asked me, interested in coming over here, he wanted to know what we hauled in an end dump that sees us all over the country. I
Gold?
said, I've hauled everything from human waste to gold ore in that trailer.
That covers quite a bit, doesn't it? Well, it's hard to explain a lot of times to people what we do,
Yeah.
and what it consists of. But obviously, you've enjoyed it. You've been here 13 years. Talk a little bit about this semi-retirement plan we were talking about earlier.
I'm old enough that I don't want to work real hard, and my wife's after me to give it up completely. And so, anyway, at this point, I try to work 2 or 3 weeks and then go home for a while. But
And that's working?
it seems to be, and Mr. Ryan seems to be all right with it. So,
Well, we ought to be. I mean, you put your time in here with us for sure, and I think it's great that we're able to do that, and that you're willing to stay on here and do that.
well, and I've been fortunate in a lot of ways, and I told Paul this 13 years ago when I started. I said, I've got my bills knocked down to where I don't have to go out and run myself in the ground anymore, and I'm not going to, But I like to work steady when I'm out away from home. I don't like laying around a lot. I absolutely hate doing a 34-hour reset somewhere, especially if I've got any hours left to run on.
Right.
But but when I go home, I like to go home and just get away from it, get out of the truck.
How does somebody set themselves up like you are? You're talking about you don't have to work. I mean, that takes a lot of planning, probably a lot of you work hard in the beginning to get, you talk about your bills knocked down to where you can.
My financial advisor, the guy I've got most of what little I've got put away with, he keeps asking me when I'm going to retire, and I've got kind of a standard answer. I said, I've made so many bad decisions in my life, personal and business, that I'll probably have to work as long as the good Lord will let me. But that being said, I came to the realization when my wife Frida and I got married that we were far enough along in life that some of the big dreams that I had when I was younger were probably not going to happen, because we were both broke. I mean, we were both flat broke when I met her 20 whatever it was, 93. It's been 30 years this fall ago. And I mean, I had a 89 IROC Z Camaro that had been beat to death, And she had a '83 Chevy Celebrity, and I had nothing put away as far as retirement. No savings, no nothing. She did have a little bit in an annuity that she'd been working on, but we've just been blessed since she and I got together and started working as a team. We bought our house in Birch Tree in 2004, and it's an old house, needed a lot of work. By that time, we had a little bit of money put away and where we could do a few things with it. I'd gotten back into being an owner-operator in January of '98 and had some ups and downs there. You know, the things that happened in the around 2000, you know, with finances and stuff. But once we got lined out and really started working together, she drove with me for 12 years. You know, we started being able to put some money away and buying an old house like that. We didn't have big house payments like a lot of folks have, and you know, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if that's what you want to do. But, so we, when she got off the truck in 2006, I really started looking at it and making some decisions that I had to do something else other than trying to run myself to death running out west all the time. And so we made the decision to come over here. That truck was 4 years old, a little over 4 years old when we came over here, so it was pretty well paid off. It wasn't done completely, but it was paid down, and it had been good to me. It had been a good truck. And fortunately, you know, we got over here and the work's steady. I mean, you know, you can just about take it to the bank. I mean, we have weeks that isn't so good, but, you know, got the old house paid for and everything. And so it's kind of like my health. I told the guy in 2009 that was getting me prepped for back surgery, and he was bragging on how good a shape I was in. I can't take credit for it. I've done everything possible to destroy my health. And, yeah, I mean, you can let your imagination run with that. And yet here I am.
Yeah.
But a lot of that is just faith in God and knowing that no matter what happens, it's going to turn out all right.
Yeah, it sure is, and it's turning out great for you and for us. Well, for you to be able to do what you do here and stay with us and keep going is just a testament in itself that we appreciate for sure.
Well, you know, and like we talked about earlier there, with one exception, I've had good dispatchers to work with. You know, once they figured out what I was wanting to do and everything.
That's a big key to it, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you've got to develop those relationships.
Yeah. And they're not going to always be cheerful every day. We're all going to have problems and have to work through some of that stuff for sure.
And one of the things I tell other people that are interested in coming over here, this is the first place that I've ever worked in my life that I didn't have somebody feeding me a line of bull about the way it was going to be. You know.
Yeah.
Kent Childers, when he took me over from Russell, you know, he was just straight shooter as could be. You know, everybody I talked to down here, hey, it's dirty work. It can be really hard work, you know, especially till you get the system figured out how to load a trailer. I told my older brother, I said, I haven't shoveled this much crap since we sold the dairy cows.
That may be part. Well, you know, sometimes we call that the Oakley workout program. You keep in shape, you know, getting up in that trailer and doing some of that stuff.
My wife says it's probably the only thing that's kept me up and running as long as I have been is the fact I get out of the truck and have to work a little bit every once in a while, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway.
And you made some good friends at Oakley.
Oh, yeah. Bunch of them.
What would you say? I mean, you know, I don't know because I've never been at other trucking companies, but how our group of owner-operators compares to another company of owner-operators. I mean, I feel like we've got some of the best owner-operators in the business, don't you?
Yeah, I do. And, you know, the last place I had the truck leased on, I made a lot of good friends every place I've been. You know, I just have. Some of those guys I met in the late 70s when I was just getting started as an owner-operator. I still visit with them now and then, you know. Most of them have died, but unfortunately. But,
right.
But now, as far as the owner-operators here, you got a great bunch of people working. And people in the office. I mean, you guys all just make it happen. I mean, it's just, you know, I see some things that probably need a little attention here and there. You know, some of the training, the way I see guys still, even though you send the new guys out with an old hand, I see guys getting out here by themselves and they just
making mistakes.
Yeah, and dumb mistakes. I mean, that's one thing about pulling an end up. I don't care who you are, how long you've been doing it. Don't ever get in a hurry. Just take your time, get your system set up so that you go through the same steps every time, as far as getting ready to dump, getting ready to load, whatever. And don't let people push you into hurrying, because you will make a mistake if you get in a hurry.
Yeah. Well, all good advice from a man that's done it for a long time and done it for Oakley for 13 years. We sure appreciate you being over here and doing what you do for us, Olaf. I appreciate you sitting down with us. You know, I know this was kind of, you came in here, you had to put your truck in the shop, and then we kind of hit you up to, hey, you want to go up there and talk about your story. And you know, I think it's good to hear, because I think a lot of our listeners can associate their career with your career. Of, hey, you know, I've started out like that too. I've done dumb things too, and finally here we are, you know, towards the end where you're able to semi-retire and work when you want to, and I think that's a great place to be.
Yeah, it is. It's a great place to be. You know, some of the things that have happened over the years and things that I've watched happen and participated in, you know, it's just nice to be in a position where I can work legally when I work, and, you know, instead of doctoring up a logbook and trying to make things match and go on with it. But,
enjoy your semi-retirement.
Okay.
Spend some time with that wife. Sounds like she's wanting you to.
Yeah, she does.
And you need to. You need to do that. Thanks for visiting with me, man. We appreciate it. All you guys out there listening, we appreciate y'all tuning in to the Oakley Podcast every week. Once again, we try to bring you some good stuff. You know, something that you can associate yourself with, and you can learn a little bit about Oakley trucking and how to become an owner-operator and the trials and tribulations and the success stories. They're all good, and we try to bring you everything we can. Be sure and, you know, follow us on social media, Facebook, YouTube. You know, be sure and subscribe. And we've got a lot of good past interviews. We got a lot planned for in the future. So, you know, we just appreciate it if you guys would definitely subscribe, listen to us on whatever platform you do, and share it with a friend. Man, if you can share it with somebody, that goes a long ways, because we want everybody to know about the Oakley Podcast, and we want to reach you and touch you. And if you got suggestions or something you want to hear, let us know. We'll be glad to do it. Hey, what a great story. I really appreciate Olaf sitting down with us, and and just telling us how he feels and really about his story in the transportation industry. And I bet you it hits home with a lot of people out there that have had a career like him too, and you can just tell how much it means to him and what he's done his whole life in the transportation industry. And it means a lot to us at Oakley Trucking. We're so proud to have a guy like him doing what he does and sticking with us for the last 13 years. It doesn't sound like he's done yet either. Hey, as always, I appreciate everybody listening to the Oakley Podcast. Please spread the word about it. That's one thing we stress that really helps is if you'll share it with a friend, if you'll tell somebody about it, if you'll forward it to them, if you'll like and subscribe, give us some comments. All that stuff helps, with the algorithms, with YouTube and Google, and help spread the word about Oakley Trucking. And we'd appreciate it if you'd do that for us. And as always, if you got any suggestions on something you'd like to hear, just give me a call up here at the office and we'll see what we get done. Appreciate you listening to the Oakley Podcast. We'll talk to you next week.